Welcome everyone to the Heart and Soul Movement podcast. I'm your host, along with the co-host Anneliese Cooper. So I'm Renée McDonald, and welcome to this first episode. We'll be talking about a lot of different things today, and I hope you'll be able to get to know me and Anneliese, and just a little bit about ourselves, a little bit of a background, and even what is Heart and Soul Movement and what are some of our plans coming up. We'll probably be talking more about the plans in the coming podcast episodes, but we can already tell you we have our first guest ready to go, and that's probably going to be next week or the week after that podcast episode gets uploaded, and we'll be talking to them next week. Crossing our fingers. So long as there's a few people, we've got to tee up our diaries, but that's probably going to be happening next week. So welcome everyone, and thanks for listening. We really do appreciate your time, because everybody's time is busy, and we hope that this starts new conversations particularly around where humanity is at, where heart and soul meets just general day-to-day life, and also looking after our body, mind, heart, and soul. That's what this podcast is all about. I'm going to throw over to you, Anneliese, and if you can just introduce yourself to everyone, just give a little bit of a background, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, hi everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name's Anneliese. I am a therapist. I have over 32 years experience in the performing arts industry as well. Lots of different aspects to me. And I'm a mum, which I think is important, because I think it makes us part of who we are. And I'm excited to be part of Heart and Soul Movement, and I think it's important for women, men, therapists, just people to check in and be aware of these things. I think that's important.
Thank you. So I've got so many questions that I've got for you, and I'm sure you've got a few questions for me. So today is almost like getting to know us, and I'm interviewing Anneliese, and she's going to interview me, just so that you guys can get a handle of almost like where both of us might be coming from, but also so that you can gauge it from another person's perspective. So Anneliese and I go way back, and Anneliese is my PA who works alongside me, and she has many skills herself. And so most of you might know that I'm also a therapist and a coach in the field, and a trainer. And in many years ago, before the pandemic, I used to run regular retreats and workshops with Heart and Soul Movement. It's just mainly the pandemic that actually stopped me from doing that. I was actually booked on a retreat to do Samoa just before the pandemic, but there was a measles outbreak in Samoa, so that actually stopped me from running that retreat. I'd already got bookings, which was amazing, but I believe we're coming back in a different way through this podcast, and then offering other things. So, but just over to you, Anneliese. I'm wondering if you can, if I can ask you a few things. Firstly, is what has your experience been of just a therapy business, and just in general, how you've transitioned from being the dance teacher to now this expanded world of therapy and coaching and other things in this field?
Yeah. Okay. So just the dance teacher was also in the therapy world without realizing that she was. And I guess that's where it stemmed from, something I've always been interested in. In the therapy world, I think the experience of me is the diversity of, what's going on for people. It's very true not to judge a book by its cover, and just the deepness of, what people are feeling, how different it is, but then also how similar it is as well, right? People go through, they feel things the same, they have similar reactions. So it's almost same, but different. And that's I think a big thing for me. The more, I think the more clients that I see and see what's happening, there's definitely the similarities, but there's also, that big diversity of, people are going through some big things right now.
Mm, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. In dance world, I used to see it mainly with my students. And I think over the years, I've taught thousands of kids. And that was a little bit more similar, right? With
Mhm,
kids,
mm,
sort of do things at different stages.
mm,
Things are chopping up right now. Kids are
mm,
going through things that we weren't aware of even as adults. So I think that's a really big thing. Yeah.
mm,
Mm.
mm. Yeah, so I guess it sounds like your dance teaching has informed you even in practice now. And it's also fascinating, and I found it amazing, and it's probably divinely connected for you to kind of come work alongside me, because initially you did your internship with me and moved into working alongside me. And I'm just fascinated with when you heard that I used to be a dance teacher as well. I mean, like, I'm just fascinated what you thought of that, and
Mm.
how that kind of changed your perspective of therapists.
Okay. Well, I think the first phone call from you was mind blowing because I thought, wow, then to be accepted for placement, which was incredible. But then the more I found out about you, I think the universe just has a unique way of putting people together. And I
Yeah.
think it's definitely what happened here. Um,
Yeah.
very, very interesting. Sort of bounce off your energy and your thoughts and things like that. So I think it's very good thing that we've met, and
Mm,
very positive as well. And it has had, the dance world has had a very big influence
mm,
on the space that I'm in now.
mm,
Yeah. Mm.
mm. And most certainly, like, I've done some training in the dance movement therapy world. There is a big crossover, particularly in the trauma space. And I think what probably is wouldn't the listeners listening back to this may or may not be aware of is that in the dance movement therapy space, there is actually a lot of really cool research, and great research around sexual assault, sexual abuse, and the healing of that can come down the line. So I'd encourage anyone listening to this, if something like that has happened to you, you might need to think outside the box to find the right therapist for you. Whilst I'm not a fully trained dance movement therapist, and same goes with Annalise. But it's if you're able to move your body, not just talk about your problems, that adds another element to a holistic way of potentially healing yourself from trauma and pain. And that's actually even where heart and soul movement almost buttresses up against therapy. And what I was doing with heart and soul movement was I uncovered, after my own trauma and grief, that I needed to move my body and do things differently. I trained with a lady by the name of Gunga Karen Ashworth. And that's all about your healing voice. So what we hold and store in our throat chakras can actually mean that, and this is kind of why it's really important to talk it out on the one hand, but also we might be holding something in our heart that we haven't released. And there's some really new work from a group called Heart Math Institute that almost proves the work I was doing with Heart and Soul Movement like some 10 years ago that I started. Um, you just combining the fact that our heart beats so fast that it actually has a brain on its own. And so I think we'll be talking to that in this podcast a lot more and in the coming weeks, is how our heart actually has a brain, and how our heart has its own intuition and muscle and capacity to even feel into spaces where you might walk into a room and you can actually feel someone's energy, and you know whether or not that person's got your back. You feel that. And a number of things happened to me that, and some of you, if you've read my book, like Rising with Butterfly Courage has just kind of come out. But some of you who might have read my book understand that I've been through my own trauma. But then it's about, how did I heal? It's actually was not just talk therapy, it was lots of different things, going to lots of different experiences, retreats, workshops, training, um, dance movement therapy training, releasing it from literally from my heart and soul. And so I think that for me is what heart and soul movement's all about. And you know, I guess I'm wanting to know from you, Annalise, just hearing that, what is your perspective now on being involved with this podcast?
Mm, mm. Yeah, exciting. I just want to go back to something, if I can, Renee,
Yeah.
the trauma and that type of thing. If anyone who's experienced that, find a dance class,
Mm,
find a dance class and have a go, because a lot of I guess from maybe 12 upwards,
mm,
girls and boys that I've taught over the years, a lot of them are at dance because it's an escape from whatever's going on,
mm,
school life and things like that. That's where their passion comes from, and they're happiest on the dance floor. And I think, that attributes to that sort of dance movement, therapy. And, it proves to me that there's something in it, because that's why we do it. It
mm,
comes from, so there's a lot to be said for that. So back to your question.
yeah.
I think, it's exciting to talk about these things.
Mm,
And if somebody can get something out of, even if it's just one thing out of a podcast, then I think that's important. If there's
mm,
just one takeaway from it that
mm,
someone's going to take back to their life.
mm,
And I think it's important. I think it's a great thing. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. So when we put something like, heart and soul together, we almost feel it on a deeper level, where we are mind, body, spirit, or heart and soul and mind. Some people think the soul is the same thing as the spirit, and other people say it's totally different. I can talk to all of these different things if people need me to, or maybe you might be asking me questions about that. Um, but today in particular, I wanted to talk about, I guess, what does it mean to be living your life from your heart? And I actually think that's really essential at the moment, when so many people are stuck in their heads. And particularly if we're on our phones or on devices, a lot of people are stuck in their heads, not thinking about what is it that their heart is drawing them towards, or what is their heart actually telling them, because our heart has its own, based on the research that I've worked with, our heart has its own muscle, but beyond the muscle, it even has its own wisdom. So there's the wisdom of the heart, even around, like, there's research about grief. So some people who might lose their partner later on in life will often pass on and pass away because they literally die from a broken heart. So heart and soul movement is all about making sure that we are paying attention to the signs, so we don't have those situations happen to us, but also so that we're remembering that our heart is important just as much as anyone else's is. And how do we look after ourselves and not think of it as selfish to look after ourselves? And the same thing goes with our soul, because often we have, in the spiritual traditions and transpersonal traditions, um, we talk about soul, but soul purpose and soul, being in the world. And that usually is related to, the way you create meaning in life. So heart and soul movement is all about meaning with heart. And then actually bringing people together to re-collaborate or reconnect to themselves and to each other in a deeper, more connected way. So, and that's been the experience I've had at the retreats that I've run. And I run very, very deep, connecting, reconnecting, re-embodying retreats. And so that's something I thought I'd need to mention to everyone. And that's something that I've done for a long time. And I've done it for myself first because I take that seriously. I'm not just going to do something to others that I haven't actually looked at myself. Um, so just kind of wondering, Annalise, for you, what is your take on just the heart and the soul and what that actually means to you?
Mm, It's such an interesting question, isn't it?
Mm,
Um, I think the heart part of it is always considering others' feelings. You
mm,
know, when we're interacting with people, like,
mm,
where's your heart in that? Are you always being kind and considerate? Are you being gentle? Are you
mm,
being tough when you need to?
mm,
That's sort of what it embodies for me. Um, Thinking about other people, that they're just before that heart feeling, right? Um, are you being kind to them? Are you being considerate? Are you speaking well to them? You know, because I think how we treat others is also fills our heart in a
mm,
way. I don't know if that makes sense.
mm, mm,
Um, yeah, the soul. I guess the soul part of it is how we feel about things. Not
mm,
not people. How we feel about things. How things resonate with us. How we feel about ourselves. Like,
mm,
where does our soul sit with a feeling, an idea, a thought, an action, even. Um, what what who are you in your soul, I
mm,
guess.
mm,
Um, that sort of, yeah, that's I guess that's my take on it, how I feel about it. And
mm,
I think maybe the more thought you put into that, the more ideas you come up with, and sort of, but it's a really good question. And I don't think, we would normally think about that. But I think maybe for the people listening, it's a really good thing to sit back and go, what does that mean to me? Mm,
mm.
mm,
I'm glad that you're bringing this in because a lot of people say if you're atheist and this is a conversation, spiritual or not, actually. And what's really fascinating is they've been able to prove in particularly the Heart Math Institute and people like Joe Dispenza, Dr. Dina DiMartini, Dr. Emoto. There's a lot of new research, and you might be interested in that, unless I don't know if you've come across those people. But if you look up those people that I've just mentioned, they will talk about the space between, even beyond that, and our interactions both with ourselves and others, and what we put out to the world, we get back almost like from a point of view of even our thoughts that we have about ourselves, um, almost have this generating either negatively or positively almost back in a circle back to us. And the Heart Math Institute is fascinating because they've pretty much been able to prove the auric field between us and the other person as well, and that it resonates from our heart, which is also fascinating. Um,
mm,
so, so, and you look at things like MRIs, the magnetic resonance imagery that doctors use, that actually taps into our auric field. And the reason it's able to do that is it's actually all the resonating energy around our body. And um, so the people who say auras aren't real are actually incorrect now. There's now science backing up the fact that auras actually exist. So, but there's an argument within the transpersonal and kind of spiritual field around, well, if we do have an aura, is that our spirit? Is that our soul? Well, um, most texts would say your spirit is the extension of your body, which is the auric field, and your soul is almost what makes you you. So that might be something maybe to kind of think about for everyone. And I don't know, just wondering, Annalise, what your take on this conversation now is.
yeah. When you were speaking, yeah, I feel like almost, that the soul is part of your passion. where does your passion lie? Is that part of you? And
Mm.
I always feel like that can move into your aura, because people can feel that about people, right? People can
Mm.
feel their passion when they
Mm.
meet them, when they're
Mm.
discussing something. So
Mm.
yeah, I feel like that is definitely, it definitely all ties in, and is the soul, an extension of the passion,
Mm.
right? Because
Mm.
that's really part of us. And can people feel that,
Mm.
like aura around somebody?
Mm. Mm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, we've got this, auric field or sense around someone, but then you either pick up the right vibes. We have so many different words in English, but in other languages too about vibe. There's someone, you know, the right vibe is your tribe. There's a lot of that on social media, that's for sure. And so, is your tribe vibing with you and what have you? But what that's about is, are you being accepted by the people around you or not? And when we turn our backs on others, if this is us towards others, the other person actually feels that in their auric field.
yeah.
Even, and the argument with some researchers is, even if you don't even say a thing, and even if you're not in the same room. So people feel the switch in the energetic field that someone has cut off their aura,
Mm, yeah,
cut off
yeah,
their kind of connection with you. Mm.
mm, yeah. It's very interesting, right?
Mm.
And is it an extension of who you are?
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm. And I guess this is just another chance for us to kind of talk a little bit about therapy. Doesn't just have to be in a therapy room. And I feel like you and I are huge examples of that. And I feel like, and I'm quite passionate about this, and I know you know this about me. I'm quite passionate about the fact that people need to heal in the way they need to heal. If it's with a therapist, great. If it's not, if it's dance movement therapy, or if it's it might be somatic psychotherapy, or it might be coaching, or it might be personal development workshops, or some kind of coaching retreat, or whatever it is, there's help and support out there for everyone. And
Mm,
I feel like what we're going to be doing and talking about over time in this podcast is exactly what that means, because there's something different for everyone, and only you know what you need for yourself. And that's what Heart and Soul Movement's all about, is about helping people help themselves, um, with the capacity to even come to us with questions. So I always encourage questions. People can write to me, and I'm going to give my details. You can write to me, Renee McDonald at pm.me. You can write to me there, or heartandsoulmovement.com is the Heart and Soul Movement website, or reneemcdonald.com. Um, Over to you if you want to share your details, if people want to get in touch with you, but also just a little bit about maybe what I was just talking to is, you what kind of support do you think has been helpful for you to know about for you, and also for you to assist your clients with?
yeah, yeah. So I think for people it has to be almost a combination, and it's finding the right combination, because everyone's not just a pigeonhole fit, right?
Mm.
So my business is Evolution Counseling Studio. You hold the key. So it's almost, you hold the key to where you want to open that door up, right? Which door do you want to open up? Do you want to
Mm.
open up the red one,
Mm.
the blue one, the yellow one? Like, which ones do you want to open up? Let's have a go. Um, so I feel like it's a combination. And for myself, I've had many different things happen, like everyone does in their lives. And it's finding that combination, and it's finding, if something doesn't work, try something else. And I'm
Mm.
a firm believer of doing what works, right?
Mm.
When you find
Mm.
what works, do more of it.
Yes,
So
exactly.
whatever type of therapy you find useful, whatever type of self-care keeps you motivated and going, do more of it.
Mm,
Do it,
mm,
do it.
yeah.
Um,
Mm,
so yeah, and I'm open to that with myself. Um, being kind to yourself and going, okay, well, that didn't quite go to plan, but let's try something else. But also encouraging my clients to do that as well.
mm,
A lot of my clients don't just do talk therapy,
mm,
they do lots of other things in their
mm,
life.
mm,
That they can enjoy can also be therapy, painting,
yep,
molding, creating.
mm,
Um, it puts you in that space, right?
mm,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Excellent.
yeah, if anyone wants to contact me, Evolution Counselling Studio at protonmail.com, and the website is evolutioncounselingstudio.com.au.
Excellent. Thanks, Annalise. And so we're going to wrap it up. Is there anything you wanted to say before we finish today?
Oh, I have a question for you, Renee. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
So in the book, which I happen to have here,
Oh, aren't you awesome? She's an amazing PA. Thank you, Annalise.
so yeah, that can be downloaded from Amazon, and you can also purchase the hard copy. But I wanted
Yep.
to know, with your book,
Mm.
what was your driving force to write that, to share those stories? Where did that drive come from?
Ooh, very good question. You put me on the spot. Wow, I thought we were finishing up and we didn't even prepare this question before. Thank you, Annalise. um, so, um, do you know people would be surprised about this? I was always planning on writing a book, but I actually got contacted by my publisher. So isn't that amazing?
Mm,
So my driving force was actually my publishing company. So
mhm.
just know that if you have a story in yourself and if someone believes you and believes in you, it can go far. Really can. Um, I was almost living in the imposter kind of syndrome there myself for quite some time, and it was actually through LinkedIn that my publishing company, they're a US publishing company and all that, but they got in touch with me. And then I said, "Oh, right. Well, I think I can do this." Then I said, "I think I'm going to need a lot of support." So it was pretty much weekly support from my publishing mentor. So he was amazing, and I'm still in touch with him. He's become a bit of a friend. He's like, "Hey, you've got so many stories. So how do we narrow it down? How do we narrow it down?" And then he's like, "Well, you've got to focus on your own story rather
Yeah.
than other people's." And privacy also doesn't allow me to share my clients' stories. So that's why I've ended up focusing on my own stories.
Mm.
And I basically started sharing some of my stories to my publishing mentor. And he then said to me, he chose, and we chose together which stories were going to then be put in the book.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what sticks out because they're very real.
Mm, mm, mm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
they're very real. And I love the way that you have shared them.
Mm,
So
mm.
and I have to say too, for anyone that wants to read it, um, I agree with you if you just can't pick up a book and finish it from beginning to end. But this is a great book that you can put down and then pick up once those kids are in bed, and you know pick it up again, because that might stop a lot of people from wanting to read a book, right?
Yeah.
You've got to pick it up where you left off, but you can actually, it's an easy easy, delightful read. So
Okay.
thank
Thank you.
you.
So, some of the hardest things for me to write about are probably the punchiest things in the book.
Mm,
It took me ages to write about the loss of my friend. It
mm,
took me ages to write about my near death experience that you can read about in there. But
mm.
my publisher said, "No, you need to write about that.
Yeah.
You have to write about that. So I was talking about just lots of different things, and he's like, "No, we're doing it." Like, Renee, scrap the alignment and the stars. This is the heart and soul movement kind of alignment and the stars kind of stuff. But scrap that. You need to tell your real stories about how you've survived the odds. Mm.
Yeah. And I feel like that is the part of heart and soul, is the
Mm.
soul of this book, is the
Mm.
sharing and the passion.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who say therapists shouldn't share too much about themselves. Don't make it about them yourself. And this is for everyone. My therapy sessions, it's all about you. So if you come to see me, it's not about me. But I share so that you know I've been through some things too. And I hope you take that from Anneliese here too. Because in the past, a therapist would be a blank slate. And then you wouldn't even know if you could trust the therapist or not with your story.
yeah,
And so I think that's where things are different now. You can now pick and choose the therapist based on, oh, yeah, she's going to understand my pain. So that's
yeah.
something else probably for everybody to think about. Mm,
Huge, because it's important to people now, because people are
mm,
feeling so isolated.
mhm,
And everyone thinks they're the only one this has happened to. And our stories are so similar but yet so different. And it's not about sharing that with your clients. It's not about putting your stuff on them, but
mm,
it's
mm,
about them going, hey, this person gets me. This person,
mm.
yeah,
Yes, exactly. And that's the only reason I share. And I've shared the abridged versions of those stories too. So people don't have to worry if they pick it up. Yeah, it's an abridged version. So I haven't like shared all the gory details, but there are some there is some, hashtag trigger warning kind of stuff in the book. And maybe if I can just ask you, Annalise, because I know you've read it and you like it, and you were one of the first people to say to me, I'm buying that book first up. Like, so just kind of wondering what your perspective was before of me and now that you've read it, and what your thoughts are around what kind of it means for you to kind of read that and have a different viewpoint now.
That's a good question. It's a hard question, Renee.
Mm,
Um, so I felt like before I read the book, I was getting to know you really, really well.
mm,
Um, Almost the book it was almost confirmation um, of the passion that you have and the person that you are.
mm,
Um, yeah, yeah.
mm,
I think it's very real, it's very authentic. And I think that's maybe why I love it so much.
mm,
Because it's out, so I can have a little read every now and then if I want to. Um,
mm,
yeah, it's very
mm,
real, it's very authentic.
mm.
So it's almost what you see is what you get.
Yeah, well, that's the aim. And there's a number of people who have thought of me and said, "Oh, Renee, you're not very." Some people who said you're not very transparent. There's one thing about working in business, you can't share everything with everybody about all that kind of stuff. But if people get to know me as a person, and you would know this, Annalise, too, is if we're not transparent as people, person to person, or authentic, and not just that authentic or type of coaching kind of thing, it's literally authenticity comes from your heart. um, and being able to speak who you are to the world. I think that's the key to good relationships, is being able to speak your truth. And I hope that people who know me and who might be listening to this, if you know me, would know that I might say some tough things, but it's because I care about people deeply.
Yeah. And I think that your book shows this. I think
Mm,
um, you have um, this passion in your soul. I think that shows us that you care about people.
mm,
You care about people, more than anything.
mm.
And I think that is important. That's huge.
Yeah. And I've had some ups and downs in business, ups and downs with clients, ups and downs with lots of different things over the years, and you know this, Anneliese, especially recently. There's been some interesting scenarios, but I guess I've been accused probably at least 3 or 4 times, "Renee, it's all about the business to you." Can you share? I really want you to share because this is your perspective, and be
Mm,
honest. Is what's your take when someone says, "Renee, you're all about the business"?
I think I have a good take on this. So,
Mm,
Renee, you are actually about the business, but you're about the business for people.
mm,
Um, you're
mm,
there for people.
mm,
Because you deeply care about people, and even the scenarios you're talking about, those interesting things that are happening for you, they're happening because you care about people.
mm,
Um, so in
mm,
effect, it's just being a circle
mm,
for you. And yeah, those people that say that in that narky way,
mhm,
they don't they don't
yeah,
get that that is you caring about the people.
mm,
Yeah, it's not in the business sense that they're
mm.
grasping. It's a very
Yes,
different
yes,
sense.
yeah,
Um, because you build these ideas, you have these thoughts, you write this book, and it's for the people. It's because you
mm,
care.
mm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, because, and this is not just so to sell things, but it's almost to vocalize what the naysayers have been saying, because for me, everything comes from the sacred place of the heart. And like even in the teachings of Jesus, there's the Sacred Heart, right? And that I see this as being super important. If we don't come from heart first, that's the whole point of this podcast as well. If we don't come from heart first, we can't have a business. We can't look after people. If we just come from just the money and just the business deliverables, then there are no people who come to us. And then there is no money that comes anyway. If we don't care, why would we do this work in the first place?
Yes, that's right. And Renee, you are very generous with your time,
Mm,
um, very generous, I suppose, with your money as well. Um, it people that are saying that they've really got the wrong idea. It's almost like they can't see through their own fog, if that's what they believe. Because I know you, and yeah, it's all about that passion and the heart. The heart definitely comes first, and it's in that passion is in your
mm,
soul. Yeah.
mm, mm. Good.
Mm.
Yeah, so we got to finish up. And thank you for sharing that and for saying all those really awesome things about me. Sometimes for all of us it can be hard to hear, but I appreciate the compliments. It's hard to often for all of us to take compliments, but I also want to share with everyone. I believe Anneliese comes from a very similar place too. And contact Anneliese if she aligns with you, or contact me if you align with me. Either way, I think we both come from a place of we've got your back, and we've done the work on ourselves as well as for others. That all we both want, and we've talked about this before, is just to help other people, not to save people, but to help people, and to help people help themselves at the end of the day.
Yes, yes, and they hold the key. You hold the key, folks.
Exactly. Exactly. So thanks for that. And we will see you next time. And next time we will have some guests on. So uh, we'll say goodbye for now, everyone. And we'll catch you later.
Bye.